Last week Monday, I swear it was just around that same time that we started. Good evening everyone, and welcome to the In the Spotlight radio show on a bit of a rainy Monday night in the Nature Isle. Again, I just wanted to just roll up in my covers and go to bed and stay in my bed and watch some TV or something. Yeah, but I love you all that much that I made the effort to come here and to host another program for you. So good evening to you wherever you are tonight. If you're home, rolled up under the covers, but listening to the program, thank you for tuning in. If you already locked onto the live, and quite a few of you all are already locked onto the live, thank you for choosing this medium to view and listen to the program tonight. If you're somewhere in the world, outside of Dominica, somewhere, and you're tuned in and locked into the program, we bid you a pleasant good night, pleasant good evening, that is. And we thank you for choosing us. We know that you have other options, but you prefer to be here. Who did we have last week? Last week we had Michael Lees. Michael Lees of Uncivilized was in the spotlight last week. And we had quite a nice program with him as well. I know some of you just prefer not to know who the guest is and love to just come on a Monday night and wait to see what I bring. For those of you who already know, you know who the guest is. For those of you who don't know, I'll tell you in just a while. Let me give you a heads up though, to next week Monday, I had a guest scheduled, but the guest is still scheduled. It is a gentleman who has survived, I think it is breast cancer, I was told. Is it breast or prostate? One of them. He was supposed to be in the spotlight next week Monday, but unfortunately I won't be able to have a program next week Monday because I may have to travel next week. So I am asking for your forgiveness in advance. I know you all hold it really personal against me when I'm not here for a program on a Monday night, but next week Monday it will be through no fault of mine. So I'll have to try my best to reschedule that guest scheduled for next week Monday. Probably not the next Monday because curling the pack starts the Tuesday. We'll see how that goes, okay? But I just wanted to give you all a heads up tonight. But let's get ready for tonight's program. Again, good evening everyone and welcome. So I have this friend, who ever so often says to me, Fadina, I have a guest for you. That's all he says. Fadina, I have a guest for you. Last time he said that, this guest is sitting right here. So he said about, was it 2 or 3 weeks ago? Fadina, I have a guest for you. He said, but I won't tell you yet. I need to get back to them. And he goes to the guest and says, do you want to be on Fadina's show? This guy's amazing. And then the guest says, sure, no problem. Okay, fine. He comes back to me and he says, it's that person. I said, okay, cool. Let me see how I can work that out. The person is going to be here for a couple of weeks and so on and so forth. And we worked it out and the guest is here. But I appreciate that particular person because he always thinks about the show and he always thinks about, giving me ideas and suggestions and guest suggestions as well. And I really do appreciate it. I don't know if he wants me to call his name, but I'll just say he knows himself. And I just want him to know that I appreciate him a great deal. Just being there on the side ever so often, just assisting me in getting guests for the program. So the guest tonight is actually a suggestion of my friend, who is a big fan of the program and a big fan of mine as well. I must admit. So I know he must be locked in and tuned in already. So I'll just say good evening to him. So that's a special good evening just for you. Okay, my friend? All right. So he told me about this gentleman who is in studios tonight. And, I'm very happy to have him. His name is Dr. Byron Winston. And we're going to go across. I'm not sure which is your mic, but we shall get it correct. Okay, good evening to you, Dr. Byron Winston.
Good evening, Fredina, and good evening to all the listeners of your show In the Spotlight. It is a great pleasure to be here, and your friend,
our friend,
I will call his name, suggested that I do come on the show and speak a little bit. So I appreciate him for that. He is always, like you, he's always been a strong advocate of mine, and is always trying to get me to do things maybe a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but we appreciate him for that.
And when he said that to you, you said what?
I said absolutely.
You said absolutely.
Because I know the quality of the program that you create, and I also know that he has, the best interest of mine, yours, and Dominica at heart always.
He does. So Byron, it is a pleasure to have you. I'm not sure if I'll go Byron, Dr. Winston, what works for you?
Either one is fine. Byron is just
I
fine.
think I'm more comfortable with Byron.
That is fine.
That is fine with you. And interestingly, I'm going to share a little bit of a joke as pertains to you. So another friend encountered you on the weekend, right? And I have some good friends, male friends. Another friend encountered you on the weekend, and that friend, you all were in conversation and so on. Now the friend has no idea who you are really or what your credentials are, let's put it that way. And so when he saw the video, he said to me, "Oh my goodness, I had no clue, no idea who this guy was." And he seemed to have been a little taken aback by the fact that you were so humble. Even when they asked you like who you are and what you do and so on, you didn't come out and say, "Well, I have a PhD and I have a master's and I have a bachelor's and I have this strange job that deals with water," and all of that good stuff. So you didn't do all of that. So, it was interesting to him how humble you were, and he expected that, the average person would probably come out and say, "Well, I have a doctorate and I have this and I have that and the other." And you did not do that. So that for me even tells me a lot about the type of person that you are. And I guess we'll learn a lot more about you as we go through the program tonight.
I will reveal some things, may not reveal everything.
Well, I hope that you will reveal enough to satisfy our inquisitive.
I will do.
All right? Okay. All right. So again, welcome everybody. Those of you who are viewing live, I'm seeing the numbers are climbing up. So you can view via my Facebook page, that is Fredina Frampton on Facebook. You can view. Obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, I am not able to accept any more friend requests. And I always say that through no fault of mine, Facebook gives you a maximum. And so if you go on my page and you can't access, you try to send me a friend request, just follow me and you should be able to get on my page and to get to see this live. It will also be live in the spotlights. We're party time, we're till on time. Sabina, good night. Good night to you, my darling. Good evening. Good evening to everyone listening, tuned in and locked to the program. So, if you want to view, then you go there. If you want to listen, then you listen on Q or any of the other online mediums. Okay, so Byron, yes, tell us, let us start talking a bit. I see you don't come with no notes. I take my own notes and give to you, your own notes and share with you. But people like you, I like when guests come with no note. It means it's all.
We're just gonna have a conversation,
and you're gonna be honest,
and we'll just talk.
So tonight we're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about what you do. We're going to talk about your connection with Dominica, being in the diaspora and all of that good stuff. But let us start off by getting to know the person. My listeners and fans of the program always like that background vibe. They like to know where you come from. Okay. Where you come from, Byron?
Well, I am from Newtown, Harlem, Fortney. I was born, Roseau, Goodwill. And I lived in Fortney all of my life, up to 22, before I left to move to Texas to pursue a degree in environmental science, a bachelor's degree. before that, I mean, I did everything we typically do, you know, as kids in Dominica. Went to Clifton Community College back in the days. Went to SMA, and before that, I was a student at the St. Mary's Primary School. I did everything. I got in trouble.
Of course you did.
You know, like everyone else.
Did we all?
Exactly. I got in trouble like everyone else. I bathed in the sea like everyone else. I climbed trees. I did everything that, you know, little boys growing up in Newtown.
Troublesome little boy?
I wouldn't necessarily say troublesome. Some people may describe me as that, but, you know, I would just say adventurous.
You would say adventurous. Yes. They would say troublesome.
Yes.
I suspect there's a link between the two anyway.
Probably there is. Probably my teachers, you know, you used to get a report card, and every year, you know what they would say? Talks too much in class. So I thought I was a very quiet kid, but they always said talk too much.
No, well, clearly you had a wrong perception of yourself.
Well, you know, there's perception and there's reality, and usually.
And what was the reality?
The reality was I probably was a talkative.
Exactly. They would write that on mine too, so you're not alone. Right. But it's okay. It paid off for me in the end. You know, talking became my business and my money maker, so it's all good, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so Newtown is where you grew up.
Yes.
Interior, on the roadside, what area?
Close to the roadside, so Fort Ney, right around the junction when you turn to go up to Eggleston, Girardale. We were right in the corner there.
Oh.
So I wasn't too far from Newtown. You know, Fort Ney, Newtown, same thing.
A lot of activity though along those routes.
Yes, no, it has gotten a lot busier compared to when I lived there. I mean, we would be able to play cricket and soccer and stuff like that right on the road, and you know, not encounter vehicles. But now, you know, the population has grown and everything, and you know, people can now use Fort Ney as a bypass to Castle Comfort and etc. So, you know, it has definitely changed.
Living in Point Michelle, we lived on the side of the road. The vehicles driving up and down, blowing their horns, disturbing, that kind of thing. I never liked living by the roadside because I like peace and quiet. As much as I'm, you know, full of energy and emepale and all of that, I never liked noise. You know, I like peace and quiet.
Yes.
What was that like for you?
I like peace and quiet too. If you can put me in the countryside with 10 acres of land, maybe a stream flowing next to it and not too far from the coast, away from most other people. My neighbor could be a quarter mile or half a mile down the road. That would be ideal. So I like peace and quiet. I like reflective time. You know, one of my previous jobs, I would drive a lot and 3-4 hours on the road, and that would be my reflective time. I like spending time in my head.
With yourself.
With myself.
Personal time.
Yes.
Let's talk about your family. Tell me about your heritage. Where do you come from, your background, in terms of your mom, your dad, at Element?
Yes. So I grew up mostly with my grandparents, like, you know, most, you know, people in Dominica. My grandfather was a plumber, and my grandmother did everything. And in addition to lighting a candle for me every day, you know.
To pray for you.
But absolutely.
Oh my.
Lighting a candle for me.
She was a Catholic?
Yes.
Okay. Strong Catholic.
Strong Catholic. Imagine, I used to wake up with my grandmother at 4 o'clock in the morning and walk to Point Michelle to go to Novena. And I always used to wonder, well, why are you getting up so early? But she taught me punctuality. Good. She would always be 15 minutes early for everything. And even today, you know, the stuff is still instilled.
Well, you were here waiting for me. Well, that is because I had to pick up Khadijah. Or else I would have been there before you.
You know, yeah. So I grew up with my grandparents and aunts and uncles. For the most part.
What about your parents, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh yeah, my dad is a forest officer. So every now and then, you know, my love. So my grandma, my dad's side, so horticulturist. My dad is a forest officer, so I think and we'll get into this probably a little bit more, my aptitude for science kind of probably came through that side of the family. And then I like buildings. I like building my own things, my doors, my vanities, whatever it is that I need, I tend to. So you have that skill? I'm working on it, but okay. I try. I do a lot of stuff for myself, okay. So I think, you know, I got this, I got 2 sets of qualities and skills, you know, the love for science from that side of my family and my actual practical ability to do stuff with my hands from the other side of my family.
Do you do things with your hands because probably you feel, why pay for it when I can do it for myself, or just because of the love of it?
Both of them. I mean, I love power tools. There's nothing nicer than the smell of pine when you're cutting it with a power saw.
Really?
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, there's sawdust flying everywhere.
Okay.
You know, the garage is all messed up with sawdust.
And you have on your goggles.
Goggles most times, you know, hearing protection, etc., etc.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm just busy and I'm doing stuff, so I don't have it. But I love doing that, one, to save money, two, to see if I could actually do it. And the fact that I love, like most guys, I love using power tools.
Okay, all right. What about siblings? Do you have any of them?
Yes, I have many siblings. I have, let's see, 6 sisters, 5 brothers? 6 sisters and 5 brothers. And they're a handful.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the most you'll say about them?
That's the most I'll say
they're
about them.
They're a handful, but you love your siblings?
I do love my siblings.
Okay.
And it's just, we always have a good time when we get together, you know, reminiscing about the past and, you know, just talking about stuff.
Okay. And family, your own family?
Yes, I'm married, yes, and I have a son and a daughter on the way.
What? A daughter on the way? Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, due soon?
Yes, next month.
Okay.
Next month.
Please get back home in time for that.
I will. Yes.
Although
there will be no Creole festival.
Although when I say home, I'm not sure if I'm referring to Dominica. If I should, it's both, I would presume.
Yes, it's both. Yes.
Okay.
Home is where the heart is, and the heart is, you know, can be in several places. Okay. So you know.
And home on the other side for now is where?
Tampa, Florida.
Tampa, Florida.
Yes.
Oh, you went to the Sunshine State.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Spent some time in Arkansas, Fayetteville, Arkansas. Then Houston, Texas, and Tampa. I do not like the cold. No, not at all. That is one of the reasons why I left Arkansas, because where we are, we're usually got cold and icy during the winter.
Okay.
So one January, after falling about 3 times in one day, I was like, that's it.
That's it.
I slipped on the ice and I fell a few times and I was like, that's it, I'm done.
Time to move.
Yeah.
Do you intend on coming back home to Dominica at some point?
That is what you call a burden of destiny.
Break it down.
So I feel it's my destiny to return, and it becomes a burden because you're constantly thinking about it, right?
And working towards that.
And
probably working harder than you are.
Working towards it, and every day you think about it all the time, right? You think about what contributions you can make, and when you're not there, you try to find other ways to be able to do that. So I think I will come back to I think most people who at our age who went to go to school to pursue a career, to develop themselves, have the ultimate desires to return to Dominica and be a contributor to the development and growth of Dominica.
And as we will learn throughout the program, even though you're stationed elsewhere, you're doing quite a bit of work here in Dominica. Yes. And we'll talk more about that. Somebody wants to know if you're married to a Dominican.
That's an interesting question. Yes, I am.
Oh,
yes,
cool.
Yes, she's from Marigot. Yes.
Okay then. Moving along, we're still in the getting to know you phase of the program. So you went to what primary school?
St. Mary's Primary School, followed by St. Mary's Academy, and then Clifton Unity.
Okay. Let's take it one at a time. Clifton Unity Community College, which is what we did. Kellogg's, myself, these people, we all did CDCC, not Dominica State College, Notovie Pusa.
Yeah.
Right. So let us start first. Do you remember your primary school days and what you loved about primary school?
I remember there were a few events in primary school I remember very well. When I was in grade 3 and I was a class prefect. You know, when the teacher leaves the class, they used to tell you to write down names of people who were talking.
Yes.
I thought they really wanted me to do that. So I wrote down the names of who were talking. And at the end of school, the guys, they stole my backpack and they hid it. And I couldn't find it. So I had to go home and tell my grandmother I couldn't find my school bag. And she had to come down to the school. And that was not that was not good when your grandmother had to come down to the school. Anyway, whoever hid my backpack confessed, and I got it. And
but you learned from that.
I learned from that. You might not want to write down the talker's name.
That's right.
You might just if they're
just
doing it,
play it cool.
yeah, just play it cool and stuff like that.
Yes.
But all of those were lessons in leadership. All those were lessons in what do you call it? Lessons in looking at what you're given and making decisions based on that. And we played. One of the Christian brothers introduced street hockey to us, and we played street hockey a lot, and I really enjoyed it. I think that was one of the most enjoyable things that I enjoyed about.
What did you use?
We used hockey sticks, but there was a plastic blade on the end.
Okay.
And we just used, I think, that's really tough plastic ball. So we used that, and we had goals and nets and everything like that. And then the next thing I remembered from primary school was when I was about 9 years old, I got really, really sick. And I spent like 3 months in the hospital. And I was close to...
What was wrong with you?
I had rheumatic fever.
Rheumatic fever?
Yes. And
this is not something I hear about very often.
It's not very often. I still don't know how I got it, but it scarred my heart valves. And so right now I have bilateral prolapse. Which just means that the valves don't close completely, so there's a little bit of blood that goes back into the bottom chamber, the bottom.
So what does that mean for you health-wise?
Nothing.
Nothing.
You're
fine. You're good.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. But the interesting thing was that so when I got out of the hospital, I went back to school, and common entrance was right around the corner. So I failed common entrance.
You did?
I did. I failed common entrance. And it was one of those things you're like, what? You failed common entrance. But I missed 3 months of school. So, I just didn't have, what it took to...
You were not prepared.
I was not prepared. And, sent me to grade 7 or whatever grade it was. And I had some of the best teachers you could possibly imagine in grade 7. Albert Tyson, just one of the best math teachers. I wish I could have taken him all the way through my college career because he was so good. And there were a few other ones, and I just had grade 7 was fun. I had a good time, and I did end up passing common entrance.
Okay.
And went to SMA, and
that must have been another experience in itself.
Yes, it was. Getting to SMA, was interesting. It's interesting because you get to SMA and you almost feel like, yes, I've made it and you've arrived. But that's when the work really starts. It took me about 3 years to realize that. Just when I got the third form, I realized, well, wow, the work really starts. And so that was interesting too as well.
Okay. Generally though, in terms of high school, St. Mary's Academy, were you involved in any sporting activities, any clubs?
Yes.
What was your focus?
Yes.
At SMA?
At SMA, I played basketball and cricket. I wasn't
very good at it.
Well. I didn't take it seriously enough to the point.
Wait. That's your way of saying you wasn't very good at it.
No, actually I was pretty good at it. The coach did ask me to join the team, but back then I was more focused on academics.
Okay.
And I didn't feel like I had the time to devote to basketball and devote to, doing well at CXC and stuff like that. Maybe I could have, but I just probably didn't have the confidence at that time to do it. And then I used to play cricket, we used to play in the afternoons and stuff like that. And I was all right. And I was on the school's cricket team at one point. I wasn't, the number one, somewhere 6, 7 or 8, something like that. I think they just needed me as a body outside, to catch the ball if it came in my direction. But, I was on there.
Did Dr. Dale Dangoben teach you?
That guy.
He's viewing.
That is awesome. I was going to mention him later. I was one of the best teachers I had at St. Mary's Academy. Absolutely. To this day, I still remember. We still talk about it.
He says you're a smart guy.
Well, yeah.
Well, if your teacher says that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that.
So those were the days at St. Mary's Academy. And then you went on to CDCC.
Yes, I went on to CDCC. CDCC was an experience because I kind of felt like it wasn't preparing me for what I wanted to do totally. I didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do, but somehow I still felt it wasn't preparing me completely. I did math and physics and biology with Edgar Hunter. And when I did biology, I think we did human and animal biology or something like that. And I think that also started to spur a little bit of more interest on the environmental side for me. I kind of started gravitating towards a little bit more on the environmental side.
So you got a little nudge into that from CDCC.
Yes, from CDCC.
Clifton Dupini Community College.
Yeah.
Good evening, Gordon Anderson, viewing from Paris. Quite a few people are locked in and tuning into the program. Thank you to all of you for tuning in.
My grades coming out of CDCC were not great. When I went for an interview at National Commercial Bank, now it's called NBD.
You wait. Sorry to pause you, but you used the word "great" in there, right? I think you should say they were bad.
They were all right, but they were not great. They were below what I expected of myself.
Okay.
And I remember the first thing I told Mrs. Fadell when she, even before I gave her my resume, I said those grades are not a representation of what I can do and what I am. So, they were not great, but.
Did you get the job?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
So the grades didn't really matter that much?
Matter. There's something called personality as well.
And you gave them a bit of that?
I gave a little of my personality.
Okay. And that job interview was for where?
National Commercial Bank.
Oh, at NCB at the time.
No, it's called
NBT.
National
Bank of Dominica. But it was National Commercial Bank of Dominica. Okay, so you got the job. What did you do at National Bank?
I was a teller, like everyone else. You started as a teller, and then I think by the time I left there, I was probably an intermediate teller. I don't know if there was a term to describe it, but I had a good time working there. Made a lot of friends that, when I go back today, I still go see, although a lot of them are not there anymore. But I do go back to pay them a visit at NCB.
Okay, NBD.
And it's not NBD, so that's what
yes. So you stayed there for a while?
I stayed there for about 2.5 years, and that was mostly because I just just typical.
That wasn't
Dominica. It wasn't what I wanted to do, but also I didn't have the financial ability to be able to just pack up and go to school. I remember deferring my college acceptance letter for 2 years, 2 or 3 years, however long I stayed at NBD, NCB now NBD, because I just couldn't afford to go to college. So
yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you applied to school.
Yes.
It would seem straight out of CDCC, almost.
Yes. About a year. I think about a year after, I wanted to try to make a little bit of cash and save a little bit of money, before I was able to do that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then you got accepted.
I got accepted, and then I had to send them a letter when it came time to start. Send them a letter asking them to defer my acceptance to the following year. And then the next year, I asked them to defer my acceptance to the following year. And
do they do that?
Yeah, they do. I don't know if they still do it now, but back then they did.
They did?
Yeah.
Okay. So you did that deferral, and you kept on working. When did you decide it's time, and how did that come about?
Yeah, there's some very some questions that are causing me to go back.
Go back, my dear. Go back.
Okay, so I was at NCB, and it just wasn't working, and I got to the point where I was just really frustrated, and I get migraines, and so my migraines started getting worse.
Okay.
And Mrs. Fadell, she was the human resource manager at that point, and she recognized that it's something Byron isn't.
But what was happening though? Was it something on the job?
Working at the bank is
were you not balancing? What was happening?
There are times when that doesn't happen, right? There are times when you will get 10,000 and you will enter it as 100,000, and then you're at the end of the day, you're trying to find where that stuff is, and then when your supervisor says, "What did you do?" and you're like, "What do you mean? What did I do?" Or where's the money? What do you mean? Where's the money? It's not 1.2, but still, where's the money? So There was that. There was the month-end rush. You know, month-end, everybody in the bank, everybody busy, everybody's impatient. What taking all you so long? So long in their life, you know, and you're doing your best to try to get them on the line. There was that, but it was just the intellectual part of it. Like I had all this knowledge, all this stuff that I learned from CDCC and SMA, and it was just they're taking up a lot of space. So all of that stuff kind of increased my migraines, and you know, so Mrs. Fadell recognized that Byron is not happy. He's not happy. So she and you know, my adopted dad, Willie Gregoire, and Dr. H.N. Carissa H.N., yeah, they devised a plan to assist me so I could get to go. And you know, by the grace of God, it happened. And even along the way, you know, there were still little challenges between the time they realized that, you know, I wasn't, you know, happy. And I had a good friend, and where we, you know, I said I wasn't happy, and I needed some time off. I don't know if you remember, there was a gentleman, Dr. Sharma.
Yes, of course.
Yes, Dr. Sharma. And Dr. Sharma gave me
You went to see him?
Yes, and gave me like a sick note. So I think when Mrs. Fadell saw that was the point, she like, whoa, wait a minute.
But you know, back then, when you went to Dr. Sharma,
yes, there was
thoughts that you had some mental illness. Right.
There was a stigma associated to it, but that wasn't the case. It was just that he knew, I was stressed out and stuff like that, and I just kind of needed some time to relax. So I think. How much time did he give you? I think maybe a week and a half, or 2 weeks or something like that. Okay. So it's been a while now. I can't remember how much, but he did. Okay. So they devised a plan to assist me. I went to Barbados to apply for the visa. The visa was denied. What? And I was like, why? No clue. The lady didn't tell me. What did you have? Did you not have? I had everything, and I gave her the documents. She looked at it. Back then they had a window. I don't know if they have a window now, but back then they had a window, and she just said, "Your visa's denied," and she closed the window. And I just didn't. No conversation. Nothing. No conversation. It was so embarrassing because there were probably 100 people sitting in the room, and I turned around and I looked at them, and it was almost like everyone was looking at me. Yes, you would feel that way. I was like, this is not good. So I left and I met a young lady outside, and I said, you know, I asked her, you know, where can I find a phone? You know, back then you could go and put in a quarter. I mean, I'm not that old, but it's going too long ago where you could put in a quarter and win a call. And she said, she showed me where. And so I called Uncle Willie, and he called the former Prime Minister, Dame Eugenia Charles, and she called someone, and I got a call at my hotel saying, come get your visa. Are you kidding? At the end of the day. So I was like, okay, well, just like that. The very same day? The very same day. So I went in, and they told me come through a side door, whatever. I went through the side door. You got the side door? Yeah, I got the side door treatment, and I got the visa. And then it was time to go. Incredible. Did you move straight from Barbados to school, or no? I came back home. You know, you had to come back home, worked for a little bit longer, told your friends you were leaving, you know, told everyone that I was leaving, had a little get together, you know, and then I left for Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls, Texas. In Wichita Falls. In what year? 1999. You're a lucky fella. You know, a few days ago I was sitting down talking to one of my other grandmothers. Growing up in Newtown, you have 10 to 15 grandmothers. I sat talking to one of them, and Margareta, and Annie one was walking by, and you know, we stopped and talked, and she hugged and stuff, and she said, "You're blessed. You have always been blessed." So she said it's not luck. She said it's because you're blessed. You've always been blessed, and I accepted it. You got that student visa after being denied. Yeah. A few hours later, you were on your way
To school. Well, not literally, but you know what I mean.
I did spend some time I think I spent a day in Barbados. The young lady that I met, she took me to a beach. She showed me around. You know.
You had just met the.
Yeah, I just met her. Yeah, and you know, she showed me around.
You all are still friends today?
I lost touch with her a long time ago.
Oh.
Yeah, unfortunately, a long time ago. I tried to, you know, get in touch with her a long time ago, but yeah.
You should try again.
Yeah,
she
was instrumental in you know, in my journey. There have been people who have come in my life at instrumental times, at times where, you know, you absolutely just kind of needed, you know, some support. So yeah, she was there.
All right. So in terms of going to school, though, so you had the visa, you had been accepted, you're on your way. What about the financial element?
The financial element, and again, another very interesting story. I got to Texas, and one of the first things I did, I went to find a job. I found a job in a cafeteria, you know, washing dishes.
Oh boy.
It was a pain. I mean, college students are kind of gross. I did that. I had also applied for some financial assistance from the government at that time. That was the United Workers' Party at that time. I received some assistance from them. I also applied for some assistance from the Dame Eugenia Child's Foundation, and I received some assistance from her. So when we put all of that together, it kind of, with my job, it almost kind of, it got me to the point. I wasn't living lavishly, you know, things were still tight, but you know, I was able to make do.
And I'm sure there are people who are listening to your story right now and just relating to quite a bit of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are a lot of people who just, the first step is getting to the US or getting to Canada or England or wherever it is that you're going to go. Maybe even Jamaica or Trinidad, wherever it is. The first step is getting there. And then when you get there, you sit down and assess, you know, your new environment and what you have to do to be able to be successful. One of the things that helped me too is that from the time that I got there, I got good grades. So once you started getting good grades, you had the ability to apply for a scholarship. So even if it was a small scholarship, back then $100 would buy you maybe 3 books. Now $100 probably wouldn't buy you a book. So all that stuff helped. One thing that helped too, and this is an interesting story.
I like interesting stories. Yes.
I was in a class, my environmental science class, and there were 2 or 3 other Caribbean students in there. And one day, you know, like I mentioned earlier, that I get migraines. So one day I didn't make it to class. I stayed home. And at about 10 o'clock in the morning, my phone's ringing and I'm getting this call. So I answered the phone. The person said, "Is this Byron?" I said, "Yes, who is this?" And the person said, "This is Doug, and I am in your environmental science class." And I remembered him, you know, he's a white guy, you know, cowboy, Texas. He came to school with his hat on, his tight jeans, his boots and everything.
And his belt.
I mean, everything. Just a good-looking guy, tall guy, you know, very well built. You can tell that he works hard. So I'm like, hey, this is Byron. He said, "This is Doug." He said, "I didn't see you in class today. You know, is everything okay?" So I said, "You know, I get migraines, so I decided to stay home today." He said, "Do you need anything?" I said, "No, I'm all right." He said, "My mom gets really bad migraines too, so I have, you know, she gets medication. She gets medicine from Mexico." I was like, "What?" Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, she gets medicine from Mexico. It's a lot cheaper there." So he said that I could bring you some. I'm like, "Okay, no worries." So about half an hour later, my door knocks. Here is Doug with medicine from Mexico. He brought orange juice and chicken and lunch, and I was just taken aback. And I said, "You don't have to do that." He said, "No, man, it's not a problem. You know, it's my pleasure." So I told him we had a test coming up. I said, "So have you studied for the test yet?" He said, "No." So I said, "Well, you know, I'm going to the library later. You know, you can come join me and we can study together," stuff like that. He says, "All right, I'll join you." So we go to the library.
You felt better?
Yeah,
after the medication from Mexico.
After the medication from Mexico, I felt good actually. Yeah,
good stuff.
That was good. You know, so we went to the library, we studied, and you know, I kind of showed him some things and how to study, and he ended up making like an 87 on his test, and he was just so excited. I mean, I haven't seen someone so excited making an 87. I made like a 96, and I was like, you know,
you missed out for.
And he was like, why are you sad? Why are you mad? You made a 96, you made an 87. But an 87 to him was such an improvement in what it did. Doug has an interesting story. When Doug was a little kid, he fell off the back of a truck, and he had some brain issues, and he got very frustrated when it came to math, anything that's math related. So he actually paid, the state actually paid for a tutor for him. So while we were talking, he said, do you want to tutor me? I said, we can study together all the time. He said, no. He said, do you want to tutor me and I'll pay you? I said, no, you don't need to pay me. We can study together anytime. He says, no, Byron, the state pays a tutor for me. So I said, oh, really? He said, yes. So I said, okay, well,
sure.
He said, I can't tell you how much to charge me, but per hour, but, you know, charge me whatever, you know, you feel like. So I didn't know better. I charged him $20 an hour, right? Come to find out, the lady before me was charging Doug $50 an hour.
Oh my goodness.
But he couldn't tell me that. So anyway, I charged him $20 an hour, and we would meet every week for a few hours. So, you know, that started
a little extra money as well.
A little extra money as well. And I started working with a program called Upward Bound. It's a tutoring program for high school students to kind of help them through high school and get good grades for college. So I transitioned out of the working in the cafeteria to working exclusively as a tutor for the high school kids and for Doug.
And for Doug. So Doug was in your class?
He was in my
Had
class.
you ever noticed Doug?
Yes, I mean, I've noticed him. I mean, he's an imposing kind of guy.
Well, yes, because of his bills and everything.
Yes. And we've said hi to each other.
And that was it.
And that was it.
But Doug noticed you were not in class that day.
No, the other side of that is the 3 Caribbean students to this day never noticed that. They probably noticed I was out of class, but none of them called or checked on me or anything like that. And that taught me a very important lesson. It taught me that you cannot, because when I got to the US, I was still pissed off at the lady from the embassy in Barbados. I still remember her to this day. Blonde hair, blue eyes, you know, round face. If I saw her in the airport anytime, I'd remember her.
You'd remember.
Right? So I was still kind of holding on to a little bit of
angst,
yes. you know, as it came to white people in general.
Oh my.
And what that taught me was that, Byron, you have to evaluate, or you have to give everybody, each person a chance. You have
on
to
their own merit.
On their own merit. You cannot just group people together and think all of them are terrible. You have to do them on their own merit. And I think that was a very important lesson for me, because that actually helped me open up my mind to being in college and just being just being accepting of other people, other cultures, and all that stuff. Because up to that point, I mean, I was only exposed to mostly Newtown people, you know, Charlottesville, and you know, other people, you know, from Dominica. So I was pretty sheltered up to that point. So it was a very
interesting experience, interesting story there, especially with Doug. I actually like the story.
You like the story?
And yes, because I mean, not only did you get to help Doug, Doug helped you. Yeah. You were able to return the favor. And then you were able to make some income from getting to know Doug, from that one move that Doug made, you know, in terms of coming to look for you. And then you got a better job.
Yes.
You know, so, I mean, the progression is just amazing in terms of that story.
And he and I remained friends for a very long time. We only lost touch recently because he changed jobs. He moved around a bit, and back then, you know, we didn't have cell phones that accessible and stuff like that, so we kind of lost touch. But I have to go on a mission to find him.
We have to go on a mission to find a few people.
Yeah, certainly. Doug actually, we used to have something called Carib Fest at the school, and Doug would bring his truck, and we would put the speakers on his truck and have the little carnival parade like we used to do back home. It was a big old diesel truck. That was the only bad thing about it. But he would do that. He would do that for us.
Doug sounds like somebody I would like.
Yeah, you would like that.
To hang around.
Yeah.
Yes.
He would take me, and we would go to their ranch. We would go, hunting. My first experience eating deer, was it's tasty. It's very tasty. It's like steak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, venison. Yeah, my first experience in that was from Doug's ranch.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was a cool guy.
Just want to say hi to a few folks I see who are tuned in. Diane, good evening to you. Judy, of course, my sister Gail, Sabina, Danielle, Omar, and all the good folks who are tuned in to the program, at least those I can see via the Facebook Live. You have quite an audience and conversation going on there. In fact, I just happened to write down a number quickly that someone says that you all need to link up.
Yes.
So I wrote the number down for you. Do you know the person?
I do know him. He was my neighbor growing up, and I told him when I was going to be here, and I've been asking him, where are you? I need to find you, so I appreciate that.
There you go. I wrote down the number for you.
Thank you.
So this was all happening at Midwestern State University, which is the first university you went to. And what degree were you pursuing there?
Environmental science.
Environmental science. So you took that nudge that you got from Sixth Form College, and you went on to pursue this for your first degree.
Yes.
So give us, we know the dog story and the rest, but give us a general sense of what this experience was like.
At Midwestern, there were a lot of Caribbean students there. We had a Caribbean students organization, and you met students from Grenada, St. Lucia, Antigua, St. Kitts, Nevis, just name it. And it was good in that you did have some Caribbean culture in a place where you otherwise wouldn't find it, but it also had the downside where you tend to feel, well, at least, okay, so let me not generalize, let me say where I almost felt like I had to stick with them and not, experience the Texas life, for lack of a better expression, until, I kind of started, hanging out with Doug, and he started showing me different things and using different expressions that, I have no clue. I had to ask him, what does that mean, and stuff like that. So, but Midwestern was great because it was a place where there were no distractions, or not many distractions in terms of, stuff to do. So you spend a lot of time, studying and either working and hanging out with Caribbean people. I also got exposed to geology, a lot of geology, because Texas is an oil and natural gas state, and I was interested in geology, but not as a geologist per se. My environmental science degree, there was a lot of geology involved in my environmental science degree. And it's a good thing because to this day, in my current job now, I use a lot of the geology that I learned back then. I was involved in the Caribbean Students Organization as a public relations officer, and I did a lot of meeting with people, talking with them, and I was very vocal. I knew Robert's Rules of Parliamentary Procedure pretty well, and I would use it to my advantage, because a lot of other people weren't as versed in Robert's Rules as I was. So I did it to my advantage.
Tell us what Robert's Rules is?
Well, it's just the procedure that you use to conduct a meeting.
Okay.
Sometimes, it is supposed to be used in like the House of Assembly, and many times you're having some parliamentary procedures.
Okay. What about the learning experience?
The learning experience at Midwestern was great, because we had small classroom sizes, and the professors were really involved in teaching. I only had one issue. My chemistry teacher, she spoke so quickly that I had to say, I had to put up my hand one time and ask her if she could speak more, a little slower. Because I said, you have an accent and I have an accent too, and the two different accents are just not, they're not blending. And she said, okay, I understand. And she slowed down for like 2 minutes, and then she just went back on. I was like, you know what? I was like, all right, I'm just gonna have to read more. So that was the only academic or educational challenge I had at Midwestern. For the rest of it, the most part, it was a good experience academically.
And you completed your degree in
environmental science in 2003. 2003.
2 years, 3 years, 4 years?
4 years.
4 years. 4 year degree.
Yeah, 4 year degree.
All right. So you graduate.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next move?
Well, before that, this sets up the next move.
Oh.
When I was in my third year, I got there's a program called Research Experience for Undergraduates. It's a National Science Foundation U.S. Funded program, and again, I am blessed. You know, you have to be a U.S. citizen to be able to get into that program. Somehow, at the University of Arkansas, they were trying to get more minorities to come to the school. So they figured some way to get us to come to do the summer program. So it was me and 2 other people, one guy from Anguilla and another young lady from Dominica, to do the program. So we went down, we did a chemistry, summer program. And I went there and it was nice. So when I graduated from Midwestern, before we graduated, we applied to Midwestern State University to go do a PhD in chemistry. So I went up there, started the PhD in chemistry, but I wasn't finding a research area that I was really interested in. So I switched over to the biology department, and I started working on it's called the biogeochemical transformations of nitrogen. So basically what it boils down to is Arkansas is a state where they produce a lot of chicken. Probably a lot of the chicken that we eat comes from the state of Arkansas. And they do that because the soil in Arkansas is not good for anything else. So they just build, barns and stuff, and they raise chicken. And when there's a lot of chicken manure fertilizer, and what they do is they used to spread it on the ground to help grow grass for cattle. But it's a limestone. There's not a lot of soil, and there's a lot of limestone underneath, and limestone cracks. Limestone forms caves. So what happens is a lot of the chicken manure would get down into the limestone formation, get into the groundwater, and then come out in the streams. And there used to be a lot of algae growing in the streams, and the algae can be toxic. So they were trying to figure out, okay, what can we do? Is there any processing? Is any of that material being broken down? So I went to the biology department and I started working with a professor, started studying that. So I switched to a master's degree, studying that. Okay. And then when I was finished doing that,
funding. What about funding?
Funding.
All of that.
Funding. It was paid for.
You were getting.
I was getting funding. Scholarships. I was teaching as well. It's called a graduate fellowship, graduate assistance. So I was teaching research assistantships. I was teaching like microbiology and just basic biology and some chemistry. Okay. I did that too as funding.
So you made your way through.
I made my way through.
All right, so you did that master's. So you decided you were staying, not coming back to Dominica yet. You stayed. By that time, though, I must ask, Byron, did you have the intention of coming back home, or were you just focused on continuing your education and probably making a life in the United States?
I was focused on continuing my education, and there was what happened. Someone told me. I remember one time I was talking to one professor, and I told him, I'm not sure if I'm going to do a PhD. And he said, well, maybe a PhD is not for you. And I said, what? In my mind, I'm like, what did you just say?
Well, you were the one who told him you're not sure if you want to do it.
Yes, but the role, in my estimation, the role of a professor is to encourage you, right? So when he said that, I was like, well, you shouldn't have said that to me. No, he probably said they were all good intention, but I was like, you probably shouldn't have said that to me, because what you just told me was I couldn't do something, so you just motivated me to do
motivation.
There was that part, but I also wanted to be as qualified as possible, whatever path that I had chosen. If I probably went into the medical field, or if I had gone to be a banker or whatever, I would have always sought the highest level of qualification that existed in that field. In research and in academia, the highest level of qualification is to get a PhD. So I wanted to do it for two reasons. One, to just show him that, hey,
I could do
I could do a PhD.
Yes.
You know, and then and then two was that I wanted to have the highest level of qualification. Also, I knew that doing a PhD would allow me to be able to give back to Dominica in ways that I would not have been with anything else. There's something with having a PhD. People tend to listen to you a little bit more. It doesn't even matter whether or not you you did anything of substance to get the PhD, but the fact that it says that you have a PhD, people listen to you a little bit more. So one of the things that we recognized at the University of Arkansas was that there were not a lot of Caribbean students that were there on an academic merit. They were there, the ones that were there came from either Jamaica or Trinidad, and they were pretty much on the track team.
Okay. Oh.
So
sports scholarships.
On sports scholarships. So a guy called Winston Duncan and myself, Winston is from Anguilla, we came up with a plan to try to convince them to start doing something for Caribbean students. And we invited the dean of the chemistry department and a few other people at the university to dinner. We said, we're just going to cook you some food. We cooked them a great meal. We had
Caribbean food?
Oh yeah, fried plantains.
I
mean, we got fried plantains from Dallas. I mean, fried plantains, because back then, you couldn't find enough there. Fried plantains, stewed chicken, rice and peas with coconut milk. I mean, people didn't think we could cook, but I mean, we put it down. So we cooked just a delicious meal. And at the end, we're like, you could have a lot more of that, I mean, if you had more students here, you definitely have more Caribbean food.
Oh my God.
The other thing is that Winston and I, again, we had good grades. Having good grades can do a lot. And we said to them, if you want a university where you are highly ranked, having students getting good grades, and they know that stuff, right? Having minority students getting good grades, will help. So with the assistance of a guy called Carl Riley, we were able to slowly get them on board where they started, it's called the Caribbean Tuition Advantage Program, where now Caribbean students from Dominica can go to the University of Arkansas and pay in-state tuition.
Incredible. Overcooking for the professors that came about.
In addition to, having grades and stuff like that. So yeah, so at this point now, most Caribbean students can go to the University of Arkansas and pay significantly less than they would have if they were not, from the Caribbean, or if they were from another states. They actually pay less than some American students.
And all because of our Dominican here and an Anguillan.
Yes.
Who felt that that was something that was needed.
Something that we need. And now, I mean, you can go on the University of Arkansas campus and you very much likely will run into a Caribbean student.
Yes.
Either from the Bahamas, Dominica, St. Lucia, somewhere. Whereas when we were there, it was only, three of us.
What did you focus on for your PhD?
My PhD, I did it in a program called Environmental Dynamics, and I focused on, so in my master's I looked at groundwater and how stuff was being processed in groundwater. Mm-hmm. In my PhD, I looked at surface water, lakes and rivers, and how what we're doing on the landscape, what we're doing is affecting the quality of the water that is going into the rivers and the lakes, because that's what we were drinking. And every year they used to have this issue where the water would taste bad. It would have a bad taste. There was a type of algae that was growing in the water that was creating a chemical that caused the water to taste bad. It wasn't toxic or anything, but people would call the water department and say their dog died or they have diarrhea and stuff like that, and none of it was scientifically related to that, right? But just the fact that the water tasted bad. It's like a bottle of milk. If you open it and it smells bad, you don't want to drink it, mm-hmm. even if I have done it sometimes. Mm-hmm. But it depends on how bad it smells, But you don't want to do it. So we did that. I studied that for about 2 years and found an interesting link between rainfall and the presence of that type of algae.
Interesting.
So yeah, when we had a dry summer, we would have a lot more of the algae, and when we had a wet summer, we'd have a lot less. And there were a couple of reasons for that. I'm not sure if you want to get into the actual science.
Well, it doesn't really matter.
Well,
but you can share with us.
Yes,
indeed.
one reason is when you have more rainfall, the lake gets flushed more often, so it actually washes the algae down.
Right.
And when you have less rainfall, they kind of stay there and they grow and they can thrive and they can produce that toxin.
Okay, so that's what you did for your PhD.
Yes.
All right. So from that, how did you know what it is you wanted to do in terms of what you do now, and did you get into that right away?
Well, I still don't know what I want to do.
Seriously?
I still don't know what I
After a PhD?
Sometimes I feel I want to be a flight attendant. Sometimes I feel I wanted to go into environmental law. Sometimes I feel like I want to run for the mayor of Tampa. So, they're just, again, I spend a lot of time in my head, probably way too much time. But when when I graduated with my PhD, I started working at the University of Arkansas as a instructor in the geosciences department. So I taught environmental justice, and I taught
environmental justice.
Environmental justice.
What is that?
It's a class. I call it environmental injustice. It's a class where
you changed the people's
I did. I call it environmental injustice. It's a class where you kind of focus on the environmental movement from like the 60s and the 70s to current. In the US, where you find the worst environmental pollution is close to where minorities live. Here you'll find the toxic landfills, there you'll find the industries. There's a place called Cancer Alley in Louisiana, where along that alley where people there have serious cases of cancer and all types of illness, and it's minority populations. You go to Atlanta, in the places in these big cities where you find where all the industries are, you find a lot of minorities. So it's a class that kind of focuses on that and highlights the importance of having justice for minorities.
I get the reason then why you changed.
That's why I call it
environmental injustice.
There was a young lady in my class. Her dad had gotten mesothelioma. It was a lung disease, and the company that he worked for kept denying that it had anything to do with it. It had everything to do with it. And after my class, she came and she told me she was going to pursue environmental law. And that was one of the things. That was very touching. Because I made the class interesting. I'm a very discussion-oriented professor. We don't focus too much on what the book is. I used to make them come to class every Friday, and they had to bring like a current topic, and we would discuss that. And some people would be for one side, some people would be against.
Current topic in terms of environment.
In terms of environment, what's going on in the environment.
Okay, not Trump passes.
No. We would talk about.
Well, you would talk about climate change and his position on climate change.
We spoke about climate change a lot.
Yes.
We spoke about nuclear power. We spoke about wind, solar. We spoke about deforestation in the Amazon. We spoke about all things. We talked about coral reefs and tourism and the effects and all that stuff. So we spoke about a lot of things.
Did you like teaching?
I love teaching, but I love teaching the classes where we were able to be more of a discussion, as opposed to the general classes where everyone has to take it whether or not they're interested in it.
Mm-hmm. So you taught for?
I taught for about a year and a half. Then I did what's called a postdoctoral research program, where I started looking at the effects of climate change on water quality, on drinking water quality. And we were looking at, as the temperature is getting warmer and more CO2 is being produced, is that producing more algae? And because of the algae that is being produced, the greater mass of algae, whether or not we're going to need more chemicals to disinfect the water, and the chemicals that we're using to disinfect the water, do they have cancerous effects? So the idea is there's climate change. The temperature is warmer. Algae loves warm temperature. They're growing more. They're releasing what we call carbon, organic carbon. We have to get that out of the water. You do that by adding chlorine or ozone. Chlorine combines with some of the organics and it forms compounds that can be cancerous. So we were trying to see whether or not there was a link there. What we did find was that yes, increasing the temperature and increasing the CO2 levels can increase the algal abundance, and it can potentially increase the formation of that compound that's a little bit cancerous. Oh. So it is really important to control from the beginning, how much algae that's going into the water, and you do that by controlling the amount of fertilizer that's going into the water, and some of the things we're doing in the areas where we live. So septic systems need to be converted to, either need to be maintained better, or you need to be put on like a public wastewater treatment system.
And as you mentioned climate change, I have to go back to Trump a bit.
Okay.
And just we're not straying, we're still on topic a bit. But his view as to climate change, what is your view on his view, and what do you think will be the result of that?
Well, Trump is an idiot. They might stop me in Puerto Rico on my way back.
Special service outside somewhere.
Hey, you never know where they are. He's an idiot. The climate change issue is an interesting one, because from the beginning they were not calling it climate change, they were calling it global warming. Global warming was a misnomer. All right. Because now people can say, well, it's 0 degrees over here. Why are we calling it global warming? They use that type of stuff, but they don't understand what climate change means. Climate change really means variation in the climate. So one day it can be cold, one day it can be hot, right? These guys are supported by a lot of big businesses who do not want the regulations that needed to be passed because they think it will impact the bottom line. It has been shown that that's not necessarily the case. Having smart climate policy actually helps increase the bottom line. Now, people that are uninformed will think that, climate change, like Trump and these guys, don't want to do anything to stop climate change. That is not true. Texas, one of the biggest oil producers in the world, has wind turbines for miles, for hundreds of miles on producing energy. The big oil companies, BP and Exxon, they are doing all sorts of research in terms of producing alternate fuels. So they're saying one thing to their supporters, the base guys that, but they're doing something completely different. So, it's all getting informed. They take the information and they misinform people and they pretend that, climate change is not real, but on the back end they're putting in subsidies and all sorts of other benefits for the big oil and gas companies to actually do stuff to help combat climate change.
Okay, Dr. Winston, we're going to take a break in a while.
Okay.
But before we take the break, tell us what you currently do and why you chose that path.
Currently, I am an environmental consultant and a water quality scientist.
What is that?
That means...
What do you do?
That means I work specifically for oil and gas companies. What happened back in the days, in the 1920s, the 1930s, there were not a whole lot of environmental regulations. And a lot of times we just did not know better. So a lot of pipelines that carry gas and oil, a lot of times they got broken and they will leak. They will contaminate the soil, they will contaminate the water. So one of the things that I do is that I lead investigations to study that and to come up with remediation plans. How are we going to clean up the soil and how are we going to clean up the groundwater? Back in the days, they would bury drums with chemicals just anywhere. Someone might be building a home and a backhoe hits a drum and everything has to shut down because we have no clue what's in that drum. So I do those kind of things, remediation. We're either going to leave it in place, cover it with concrete so that it's not exposed anymore, or dig it up and take it to a facility where it can be properly disposed of.
That sounds like a cool job.
It's very interesting. I mean, it's every day is different. Some days I'm just like, what the hell
am I doing?
You know, it's like, you know, and you have different personalities, like everywhere else, right? You have different personalities to work with. There is one guy I just cannot stand that's on my team, and he probably cannot stand me either. And there are some people that I just love working with. You know, so it's like everything else, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, what you want to do is to be able to make a difference.
But you enjoy what you do.
I like what I do.
You like what you do.
I like what I do.
You like what you do.
Enjoy
is a different term.
It's a different term.
Yeah,
I like what I do.
And we spoke a while ago about, what it is that you would probably want to be doing. So you said there are days you probably could be a flight attendant.
Yes.
So in terms of what you're currently doing, is it something that you see yourself doing long term, or is there another direction you see yourself going at some point?
There are a couple different directions. I think I may return to academia at some point, but ultimately my goal is to come back to Dominica and be part of the leadership of the country.
Really?
In some capacity. I'm not sure what capacity that is yet, but we will see.
Okay, Dr. Byron Winston, we'll come to that in just a minute. I'm going to give you a break for a moment, and we're coming right back. For those of you who are just tuning into the program or tuned in while we were speaking and you were wondering, who is this person? This is Dr. Byron Winston of Boughat, Charlottesville. And he is currently living in the United States, in Florida to be more precise. And he's visiting for a couple of weeks, and I just so happened through a good friend, a mutual friend of the both of us, who thought I should have him on the program, and here he is. And I can tell you, Byron, there's quite a few good things being said about you here. I just saw one person say, if there's one person who learned something from this program, it would be all worth it at the end of you being on the program tonight. So we're going to take a quick break, just a couple of minutes, and when we come back, we're going to get into Dr. Byron Winston, the Dominican, living in the diaspora, but whose heart is very much at home. Well, at home in Dominica. Keep it locked. We're coming right back. This is the In the Spotlight radio show. It is Monday. What's the date of today? Is it the 8th? The 7th of October. When the day goes by, I forget what day it is. Keep it locked. We're coming right back in just a while. In the Spotlight on Q95 Radio. Every chance from 8 p.m. In the Spotlight. Featuring put from all walks of Dominica life. Spotlighting the triumphs and tragedies. Dreams, hopes, aspirations. Untold stories. Touching the human and personal side of all people in politics, religion, sports, business, culture, the media, and more. Getting all powers of public servants, youth, and the ordinary Dominica. Listen to the stories. No limitations, no restrictions, no holds barred. In the Spotlight will also spotlight interesting topics, issues, and relevant situations. Don't miss In the Spotlight on Q95 FM Radio every Monday night from 8 p.m. In the Spotlight.
One-on-one with interesting personalities, educational and informative topics and issues, intriguing and entertaining. A must listen to In the Spotlight, Monday nights from 8 p.m. on Q95.
Spotlight on Q95 FM Radio every Monday night from 8 p.m. In the Spotlight, featuring people from all walks of Dominican life, spotlighting their triumphs and tragedies, dreams, hopes, and aspirations, untold stories, touching the human and personal side of all people in politics, religion, sports, business, music, culture, the media, and more. Getting to know our farmers, public servants, youth, the ordinary Dominican. Listen to their stories. No limitations, no restrictions, no holds barred. In the Spotlight, we'll also spotlight interesting topics, issues, and relevant situations. Don't miss In the Spotlight on Q95 FM Radio every Monday night from 8 p.m. Mr. Ted Serra, good evening to you. He was trying to figure Dr. Winston out, and as I said, Charlottesville, it came together. Good stuff. All right, it is 24 minutes already past the 9 o'clock hour. This is the In the Spotlight radio show featuring tonight Dr. Byron Winston, and we got to know quite a bit about this gentleman as we got through the first hour and a half of the program already. But Byron, from what I've learned, is a Dominican living in what we call the overused term in the diaspora. You think it's an overused term?
I don't like the term.
You don't?
You know, it's what it is.
It is what it is. But you live outside of Dominica.
Well, that is true, but it seems like, you know, the denotation has the connotation, right? And
Denotation and connotation.
And a lot of times when it's used, there seems to be a negative, you know, association, you know, with it. So
yes.
That's the reason I don't.
Well, I don't use it. I don't use it with a negative connotation.
No, I'm saying, you know, but generally,
yes.
It may just be my perception of the word and how it's being.
I don't think it's just you. I don't think it's just you.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just you. So before we get into what you do for Dominica, and I know that's not what you're about, because I know I can see the humility in you, but we have to talk about it. So I hope you don't mind us talking about it. But using the term diaspora, quote unquote, I know you don't like it, but there's a lot of Dominicans who live outside of Dominica. What do you think is the relationship between you all and Dominica? And how can we better take advantage, quote unquote, of those who are out there and willing to contribute to Dominica?
The diaspora or diasporans, like everywhere else or every other country, they have different opinions on how, you know, what's best for Dominica. Now, the fact that we live abroad, a lot of times the conversation is the diaspora this, the diaspora that, all right? The fact that we live abroad does not necessarily mean that we are not contributing and that we cannot contribute to the overall development of Dominica. What I would like to see from the diaspora is, and I don't know if it exists, is a concerted effort from the diaspora, perhaps under one organization that can help lead economic development in Dominica.
Okay.
A diaspora that probably has, you know, membership dues or membership fees that can generate some type of cash and capital that can support perhaps small business development in Dominica. All right. The diaspora plays an important relationship in the important relationship that the diaspora has with Dominica. After Hurricane Maria, after Hurricane Erica, the tropical storm Erica, the diaspora mobilized to, you know, assist Dominica as quickly as we could. At that point, I was in Houston, and I can tell you the number of persons and people that came together to help, which is unbelievable. I mean, I lifted so many cases of water. I can't even count how many at this point. So we should not. I don't think the diaspora should contribute to Dominica only when there's a disaster, or by, you know, sending a barrel for your family every now and then, or sending money for your family every now and then. All that is good, but there should be a more cemented effort from the diaspora to help growth and development in Dominica. Now, with that being said, it's a two-sided coin, right? Dominica has to be willing to accept assistance from the diaspora. One of the things that people say all the time is Zoale lot pays or viewers or anikwe zokone tudbite. You know, because we're overseas, we're over there, we think we know everything, we just want to come and tell people what to do. And that's not the case. If you're exposed to something different and you see it being done in a certain way where it's more efficient, it should be okay to share it with people, to, you know, with Dominica, to do it, to try to do it that way, because it will only lead to, you know, greater efficiency and perhaps developing a better product. So it has to be a two-way street. Like, the diaspora has to be willing to give, but, you know, we have to be willing to accept as well. With that being said, there are small things we can all do, and a lot of people do stuff. There are two initiatives that I'm involved with. One is called the Sons of Sma Organization. It's a bunch of guys who have gone to St. Mary's Academy and want to continue to contribute to St. Mary's Academy. And we did that. We started that organization. Kimani, Augustine, myself, Makaza, Dina, Gregors, Joseph, a few guys got together and said, okay, we're going to try to start something. We did it for a couple of reasons. One, we wanted to honor Adrian Dura, Reds, a great math and physics teacher, and Mr. Elwin, who was the principal geography English teacher at that time. We just wanted to do something to honor them. So we started a scholarship fund in their name, and we raise funds annually to give scholarships to students at the academy. The other initiative I'm involved with is called the Grace Foundation. It's called Growing A+ Children Early, and that was started by my wife to honor her grandmother, who was a school teacher. So we support preschools in Dominica. We have 3 preschools that we have supported since before Tropical Storm Erica. And what we do is, again, we raise funds, and we get, just stuff that preschoolers need, right? Chalk, crayons, colors, markers, coloring books, Play-Doh. The Play-Doh, you don't want to travel with the Play-Doh in your backpack. You will get pulled over by ICE and immigration, and they will test it from now till the sun comes down, and you'll end up missing your flight. Yes. I've had that experience. Well, I didn't miss my flight, but it was, they will do that because Play-Doh is one of those things that
Those
right, C4
whatever.
And that kind of stuff. Yes. So they will do that. So we've been doing that for quite a few years.
Which
now.
of the preschools?
So we have 2 preschools in Newtown, the Ginger Preschool and the Charlotte Nursery, and then 1 school in Marigot, the Zion Methodist.
Okay.
And after Maria, we raised quite a bit of money to have the schools completely clean. I don't know, you must have seen Newtown filled with, debris and rocks and stuff. So we had the schools, paid people to clean the schools out, to paint them, to clean up the yard and everything.
To help restore.
To help restore the school. The one in Marigot was completely devastated. We raised, some money which we contributed to them to help. They pretty much had to rebuild the school. So we did that too as well. So, you can be away, but you can still contribute directly. And for me and for us, education was the key, right? We saw education as the ultimate way that we can change our life, change the lives of the people around us, and the change of the lives of people to come.
Mm-hmm. Any reason why you went in that direction? Did it have anything to do with your experience?
In terms of
school?
In terms of school?
Getting to go to school?
Yes. Because had it not been for good grades, there was no way I would have been able to make it to the US. So I understand the importance of having a good education. And again, I said that I've always had great teachers. I've always had great teachers. My math teacher, my physics teacher, my chemistry teacher. Agriculture. I did agriculture when I was at the academy. Mr. Jolly, or Aurelius Jolly. I've always had great teachers, and they've always inspired me and the other guys who went to school with to excel. They've always inspired us to, just go out there and make it happen. Get it done and make it happen. So if I can do the same thing, and not just that, along the way I've had a lot of people help me. There is absolute no way that I could be where I am today without the people who have helped me. And they have come in all different times in my life. They have come, in different colors, different shapes, different forms,
different situations.
There are times when I could have probably gone down this road and someone said something to me, that made me, straighten up and go. There was one time, I think it was a Sunday, I came from church and I was walking up the road and I stopped, Newtown, just talking with the guys, some of the guys. And Father Joe, I never remember Father Joe. Father Joe, Father Joe was an interesting man. He would tell you what he needs to tell you. He walked by and he looked at me. He drove by and he looked at me. I didn't pay any attention to it. So later that day, now he had to go to Bellevue and all that stuff and do his mass. So later that day, I'm walking up the road going up to go visit Dr. H.N., which I did normally on a Sunday. And he stops and he picks me up and he says, Byron, I'm not telling you to don't have friends, but the guys I saw you hanging out with, it's not something that, I recommend. And, I took him as what I knew he had my best interest at heart, but I also knew that the guys I was hanging out with, they were troublemakers and they did their thing, but I knew that was not going to influence me to go do what I didn't want to do. Mm-hmm. If Byron wanted to go to something, Byron was going to do it. If he didn't want to do it, that's it. So, but it did make me think, right? It did make me think that, hey, there are people out there that are kind of looking at what you do and that also have your best interests at heart. And you just never know where they're coming from. And there are many people. I mean, if I start calling names, we might not end tonight. But there are many people, and many times in my life, who came in and either said something or did something that I've never forgotten. And even when I remind them of stuff, they don't remember. I was talking to Mr. Daly, who's a teacher at SMA the other day, and I said to him, "Do you know you were the one who actually taught me how to study? Because I didn't know how to study. I had always just relied on memory or whatever natural ability I had to pass tests. And one day, a teacher did not make it to class, and we had a free period, and we were in there causing a ruckus. I mean, it's boys, we were 15, 16, we were rowdy." And he came in and he said, instead of forming the fool, why don't you guys pull out your books and study, do something? And I said, well, I don't really know how to study. And he went and he showed me how. He said, read the chapter, look at the questions, underline stuff, go back to it, make sure you know it. And I started doing that.
And it worked.
It changed everything. I went from being just an average student to just a little bit above average. But
well, it turned out to be way above average.
It made a difference.
It did.
So and I reminded him of that, and he's like, I don't remember that. I said, you don't remember it, but I do. Yes. And I'm internally grateful for you, taking the time to say that to the class and showing me what I needed to do.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
While we're on the topic of the diaspora, quote unquote, seem to be very much involved in what's happening at home, especially politically. Mm-hmm. There are some people who feel that they really should not, that you all really should not get involved in local politics, and there are those who think that you should get involved. There are those who think probably for whatever reasons you all should not come back to vote. There are rules that states how you are entitled or how you become eligible to come back to vote. So to me, whoever is eligible to come back to vote, hey, come back to vote. What is your view on that?
My view on this is, if the diaspora is making a valuable contribution to the development of Dominica, you should have the ability to speak your mind, and if you are eligible to vote, to come back and vote. If you are sitting in New York, Texas, Florida, and just running your mouth and not doing anything toward the development of Dominica, I really don't have time for you.
People should
keep quiet.
Yes.
And that's just the way it is. Because a lot of us have opinions. I prefer action as opposed to an opinion. If you're doing something, then we can talk. If you're not doing anything, I don't want to hear it. I mean, it's that much. It boils down to that. It's
simple as that.
That's as plain as I can put it.
Okay, so I'm then going to ask you personally, Dr. Winston, do you have a view on the political landscape in Dominica?
Have have I never not had a view on something?
Well, I don't know
No,
because we're not friends on Facebook.
Right.
I don't even know if you talk politics
Right.
on Facebook.
I do.
Well, we are friends now.
I do. And it was surprising that when I'm friends because you and I we go way back. I mean.
Well, yes, but when the person said to me, "I'm Byron Winston," I was like, "Okay, you know."
Exactly.
But you know, but of course, once I saw your photo, I said, "Oh my God,
Exactly.
yes, of course."
I mean Patrick. I mean from P.
course,
I mean,
of course.
I was shocked when you said you don't know who Byron is, but you know, time
At the
and
time.
you haven't seen me in a while.
Yes, indeed.
In a
Do
while.
you come regularly?
Not as regularly as I would like.
Okay.
I mean, I was here after Maria,
Okay.
and before that, maybe 2 years prior, I was here for the state college. I gave the commencement speech at the state college ceremony a few years ago. You do remember that now? Yes. Yeah. So I do come.
You do come.
Yeah. I do
Yes.
come, yeah.
But back to the question.
No, remind me what the question was.
Your view.
Oh, my view on the political landscape in Dominica.
Yes. He's straightened up himself.
I grew up in a time in Dominica where, in the Caribbean, where I admired people who ran for political office and who were in political office. One of the reasons I admired them is because they were great orators. I mean, Rosie Douglas, I could sit down and listen to him speak for days. John Compton, I could sit down and listen to him speak for days. These guys would come and give a speech without any notes. I mean, they would just come and you would be like, where is it coming from? The political landscape now is disappointing because when I listen to the launchings of candidates on both sides, I hear more personal attacks. I hear more derogatory stuff. I hear stuff that's not based on fact, right? I hear stuff that people just kind of say what they want. I hear things where you have an unequal disposition or dispensation of the application of the law. And all these things, when I grew up, that was not, perhaps it was there, but the extent was not as bad. And what I would like to see is that people return to a place of civility. People return to a place where common sense and where the equal dispensation of what is fair and what is right is applied to both sides. And I think when we can get back to that, then, you know, we will have a more just society. And I think, you know, people will probably get along a little bit better. But in terms of in my opinion, it has been very disappointing.
Okay.
I want to hear more about, for example, you know, the ruling party.
Mm-hmm.
When you come on the platform, I want to hear, in the last 15 years, we have grown the economy by X and X percent. In the last 15 years, we have increased agriculture by X and X percent. In the last 15 years, we have increased, you know, tourism by X and X percent. I want to hear from the opposition. Here are the plans that we have to increase the economy by X and X percent. Here are the plans that we have to increase agriculture by X and X percent. Here are the plans that we have to increase tourism by X and X percent. That is what I want to hear. And I want to hear it over and over and over again. When the loudspeakers are passing and they're playing booyah and everything else, when they stop to talk, that's what I want to hear them saying. Not, you know, this one is this and this one is that and this one is this. It does no good for for the discourse that we should be having.
So this is what you would want to hear from the reigning government, the current government.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking for from the opposition?
The same thing. I want to hear if the ruling party says, well, in the last 15 years we've increased the economy by 10%. I want the opposition to say, well, you've increased it by 10%, but here are plans to increase it by 15 or 20%, right? If the ruling party says we've sent, you know, 10,000 students to, yes, that's really, you know, a bit much. But if we send 500 students to college, I want to hear from the opposition, you know, what are our plans to send 500 or 700 to college, but also to attract them back to Dominica. These are the kind of things that I want to hear. I want them to go at it based on facts, based on numbers, based on statistics. Those are the kind of things I want to hear. I don't want to hear nonsense about, this person did this and this one did that, and I don't have time for it.
So I'm going to ask you, and feel free to respond. You do not have to tell me which it is, but do you currently support a political party in Dominica?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't, because I'm not hearing the things that are required to get my support. I think both of them have some elements, that are good. Both of them have some elements that are bad. And this is the place I want people to get to, is recognize that I can support this guy, but I can also say that there's some things I'm not happy with. Because when I grew up in Dominica, that was okay. Like, you could say, yeah, I'm a Freedomite, but I don't agree with this thing that the Freedom Party did. Or you could say, I'm a Labourite, but I don't agree with this thing the Labour Party did. I still support them, because you're not going to support everything they do, because we're in a democratic society and where people have views and opinions, and we differ on how we're going to get things done. So you're not going to agree 100% with everything someone does, and if you do, that sends a red flag to me. I mean, if you support your party 100%, if everything they do is right on either side, then you're not looking at it objectively. You have to look at it objectively. This was done. How can we do this better? How can we change things to make it better? And when you're viewing things that way from an objective standpoint, then you will see that you will realize that, okay, I don't agree with you 100%, and that is okay. That is okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Have you voted ever in Dominica?
No, when I left just before the election in 2000, when I was of voting age, I think.
And you've not registered to vote in Dominica?
I have not registered to vote in Dominica.
So you will not be voting?
I will not be voting, because I do not meet the eligibility requirements to vote in Dominica.
Okay. All right. This is Dr. Byron Winston. We can probably try to take some calls for him if we have some time to do that. The numbers. They are 4493095, 4493096, 4493097. Those of you who are viewing on social media, if you want to pose a question there for him, once I'm able to, I'll scroll and try to pose the question to Dr. Byron Winston. So we're just getting some comments here that you are making some great points. Time to take the country and its citizens seriously. Constructive advice is what this person is saying there. And for those of you who are still up and you feel you can make a contribution to the program, you can give us a call. The overseas number, by the way, is 305-432-9624. We will take a quick break and come right back. This is the In the Spotlight radio show.
In the Spotlight.
This is good stuff.
FM radio. Every
my position on politics.
In the Spotlight, featuring people from all walks of Dominica life.
Good stuff.
Very
unnice.
Stories.
I think it's
very cool.
Personal side.
What he did say was
Politics,
long for
religion, sports,
It's on 26.
culture, and more. Get it to know farmers, public servants, youth, and the ordinary Dominican. Listen to their stories. No limitations, no restrictions, no holds barred. In the Spotlight will also spotlight interesting topics, issues, and relevant situations. Don't miss In the Spotlight on Q95 FM radio every Monday night from 8 p.m. In the Spotlight. One-on-one with interesting personalities, educational and informative topics and issues, intriguing and entertaining. A must listen to In the Spotlight, Monday nights,
9:48 is the time in our studios. We have someone on the line. Good evening.
Miss Thompson?
Yes, good evening.
I must admit, you on Monday nights I cannot sleep because until you fall asleep before me, then I start falling asleep. I can't miss your program.
Oh, thank you.
This gentleman you have there, man, Mr. Song, everything he said, man, I just impressed by it, man. And especially when you ask him about his political questions, man. It wasn't many, but just a few. I appreciate it, and I have been enjoying it. What cannot miss me, your program. It's still losing very short of sleep, that. I am quite impressed by it, man. So, this gentleman, man, I wish I know Mr. Gas.
Oh, maybe someday. But thank you for tuning in every Monday night. I really do appreciate it. I really do appreciate all my listeners. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Good night to you, sir. All right. He said good night to you. All right. So a follow-up question here for you. How do you think, that's from one of our Facebook viewers, how do you think Dominica can become more resilient? Is that the question? How do you think Dominica can become more resilient?
I'm guessing that they're referring to climate resilience.
Well, let's get the person to clarify while we take this call. Good evening. Hello, good evening. Yeah. Good, thank you.
Okay, Byron.
Yes, sir.
What's up?
I'm all right. How are you?
Okay, you know what's going there?
I cannot tell from the from being on it.
Okay, you remember the sky is for you, sir?
I do not, sorry.
He does not.
Byron.
Yes. Oh, Magnus, how are you?
I didn't speak to you.
Well,
Brother.
I'm doing well. I appreciate you listening.
But you like the forest remove and you make a nice gathering for your grandmother, boy.
Yeah. Yes, I did. She needs a little bit of assistance getting up and down the steps.
Byron.
Yes.
Tears came in my eyes and joy. Byron, I admire you a lot. I always loved you as a young boy growing up. You know, you used to call me Uncle Magnus. I'm very proud of you, and I appreciate what you are doing. You said something a while ago which you did not really respond. You said that you would like to maybe come back in the political arena.
Don't worry, I have to note, don't worry.
It will all be a leader. It's people like you we need to come up. There's certain things that maybe you don't like in the government, but I suspect you'll make a good parent for us. So good night then.
We'll get back to that one, Byron, don't you worry.
Thank you, Magnus.
Let's take this one. Good evening.
Hi,
Good.
Appreciate you for your program and appreciate your guest, Mr. Winston, tonight.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I always look forward. I think it's very powerful, the stories that you have people tell. Storytelling is a very powerful tool to teach and for people to learn, so I think it's very positive what you're doing. I appreciate the program. I also want to appreciate Dr. Winston for what he's sharing, the information he's sharing, and to also say that we should try to figure out a way that some of the young people can listen to him speak, because we definitely can motivate them, the story can motivate them to show them what they can accomplish when they set their mind to do, whether it's educational or And also my question for him would be, what recommendations do we have for Dominica in terms of looking at Dominica, the environmental piece of environments, like how Dominica being going for the green country and promoting climate resilience, and what advice we have for the government or people in general in regards to climate change, and what steps can be taken to make Dominica a truly climate resilient country, and something that's focused on the environmental impact and environmental science.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I think I'm going to twin that with the question from the online viewer. How can Dominica improve its resiliency based on changing climate conditions, i.e. stronger storm systems? So that's kind of somewhat similar needs.
Well, climate resilience is broad. For places like Dominica, climate resilience should really focus, and that's just my opinion, should really focus on infrastructural conditioning. So do we need more seawalls? Do we need stronger bridges? Do we need stormwater systems that can help control some of the flooding that we have? Do we need stronger codes, building codes, for example? I've heard people complain about the apartments and stuff that are being built for citizens. From an ecological stand, and some of the complaints are, well, Dominicans are not used to living in apartments, and you're taking people out from there and you bring them over there. But from an ecological standpoint, from a footprint standpoint, that is actually a good thing. It's better to have more people in a stronger building than have 10, 20 people scattered all over the place with septic systems, as opposed to one where you can have your wastewater going to a proper treatment facility.
Okay.
So, climate resilience is going to be expensive. I mean, countries, Florida is dealing with the whole climate resilience issue as well. I'm part of a team that is working on the city of Naples in Florida with their climate resilience plan, and these are the things that they're looking at. The infrastructure. Do we need to put pumps at the bottom of buildings so flooding so they can be pumped faster? Where do we need to put them? Do we need to focus more on solar? Do we need to focus more on wind energy and those kind of things? So it's going to cost a lot. We also have to look internally. I think we have the perception that because we're so small, we are not contributing to climate change. That is not necessarily the case. We have tons of vehicles all over the place. We have plastics all over the place. We have, materials, trash all over the place sometimes. So we have to be looking at, can we use these resources and turn them into something that's beneficial for us? How can we turn these waste materials into something that's beneficial for us? All these things contribute towards climate resiliency.
Okay, so I have to ask you this. So we talk about becoming the first climate resilient country. Is this a thing? Can this actually happen? And are there others who are probably ahead of us already in this?
There are others that are ahead of us, right? Because it's a lot of it, like I mentioned, is based on financial resources. And he who has money to build can build and be resilient. We can become the first climate resilient country. It is a thing. It can be a thing. But it's going to take sacrifice. We are going to have to give up some of our ways, and it's going to cost money. That's as basic as it is. Climate resilience costs money.
Okay.
Because we are looking at fortifying the infrastructure that we already have. And just, Magnus mentioned he saw me building a railing for my grandmother.
Yes.
I can tell you materials are expensive.
Okay. Yes. Right. So see the time already. Our time flies on this program. We have to get to the question of what you mentioned earlier on. And I saved it for towards the end of the program because I don't know what direction this is going.
I mentioned
so you know exactly what I'm talking about. The leadership role that you would like to come back on one day and play. Is it in politics? What are you thinking? What are your thoughts around this?
So leadership takes a lot of different forms. But it would be in academic and or political leadership.
Nice.
That's just it.
And that's just it. Academic or political leadership.
Or might be even a combination of both.
Might be a combination of both. What are you doing to get yourself ready for this? And are we looking 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road?
20 years down the road, I'll be what? Close to...
I don't know.
60.
I know around what age I think you are.
I'll be close to 60.
Too late?
It might be a little bit too late.
Yes.
I've lost some of my youthful fervor, so it would be before that. But there are other things that has to be considered in making that decision. But it would definitely be in some leadership fashion, and that's something that has to be. That I have to sit down and think about really.
Deep thought.
I mean, I'm ready to move back to Dominica.
You're ready. If you could move now, you move now.
I would.
Yes.
I would. But there are things that have to be put in place before that can happen.
All right. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with Dr. Byron Winston. All right. Dr. Winston, if there is anything that you think in everything that we spoke about tonight that you would like the audience to take away from what you've shared, what is that one or two things that you would probably want us to take away from from your experience, from what you've said on the program this evening?
The biggest takeaway is we need to support the young children in Dominica, and we need to support them from the time they're preschool age to the time when we send them off to whatever career they want to pursue, whether it's a technical career, or an academic career. We need to work on motivating them, right? We need to work on showing them that, hey, don't give up. There are people that are behind you. There are people that are supporting you. There are people that will stick with you until you need to get to where you need to get to. Just driving around, I see a lot of young people sitting by the roadside. I mean, I don't know what their stories are, what their stories is, but we need to support young people. I had a lot of support, just from countless number of people.
Well, I mean, that one phone call from the Iron Lady changed your life forever.
Exactly. Exactly. So we need to do that. We need to support the young folks in Dominica. I mean, it sounds cliche that they're the future, but they really are. And with our support, they can do a lot of things.
Besides down the road, when you make up your mind in terms of the capacity in which you're coming back to serve, what is in the immediate, not too distant future for Dr. Winston?
Yeah, in the immediate future is continue to support the initiatives that we have here in Dominica. When I came, I gave a few scholarship checks to students at SMA. I donated,
this time around?
Yes, this time around. I donated some equipment that they can use in the SBS for geography. Last year we donated some equipment to the convent high school they could use for some of their geography.
Also, you don't just do SMA?
No, we don't just do SMA. We support education. We have contributed to schools in the Kalinago territory, we've contributed to schools in Casa Bruce, we've contributed to schools all over Dominica. So we are doing things to support Dominica. And if you're supporting Dominica, you have to support everyone in Dominica. Because at the end of the day, we are all growing and developing together.
Sure. Somebody, Naren Murphy, you want to start off with the $20? Naren Murphy, let's go for another hour or two. Interesting program. Everybody put at $20. Let's go to midnight. You want to come and complete the interview, Naren Murphy? Yes. So Dr. Winston, we have to wrap up the program. I thought, every program that I do on a Monday night, I always feel to myself, okay, Fernanda, you think you can outdo this one? You think you can outdo this one? And my listeners and fans say the same thing. But this was a really good one tonight. And I think your experience and what you've been through, your education, your passion for education and helping the young people of Dominica in terms of, helping lay a foundation for their future. What stood out for me, though, in almost everything you said, was the fact that you were helped. People helped you. People reached out to you. And so you see the importance of passing it on, continuing that tradition of helping, but this time you are the one doing the helping in terms of giving back for those who gave to you when you needed at the times that you needed. So in essence, you're paying it forward. And I do hope that God will continue to allow you and your wife to continue to pay it forward in whatever way that you can. And I hope he continues to bless you so that you can continue to bless others. I hope that your wife has a safe delivery whenever she gives birth to your daughter, and I hope that everything goes wonderfully for you. I'm going to give you one final opportunity. I know we just spoke about the young people and so on, but your final remarks on the program tonight.
Yeah, I just want to thank the listeners for tuning in. Our mutual friend who recommended me and you to be on the program. I want to thank each and every person who has played a role, no matter how insignificant you may think it was or it has been. I just want you to know I appreciate it very much, and then that I would not be sitting here today if it wasn't for your contribution. No one's contribution in my life has been insignificant. I've taken each one of them very seriously. I appreciated that, and I have a responsibility to give back because they all gave to me.
Now, a gentleman who I've had on this program is not even rating his program. He's saying this was my number one of all the shows. Gordon Henderson, I don't know what time it is where you are right now. It should be morning. So good morning to you. And I really just want to thank all the listeners for tuning in every Monday night. I mean, I continue to see people almost every single day who say to me, you know, Fadina, I listen to you, and you know yourselves. So, you know, good evening to you if you're listening tonight. Well, good night. It's almost time for us to end. Those of you who are here religiously on the Facebook Live, you know, checking us out and giving the support, you know, I thank God for all of you. And the guests, you know, without the guests, we definitely would not have a program on a Monday night. I hope, Dr. Winston, you get to listen a little more often to the program. It's a good program, if I might say so myself. It's the stories that get me. It's the stories that get me. And our special friend, all I would just say good night to you, Omar. Thank you for this wonderful recommendation tonight. I really thank you for sending Dr. Winston. You leave sometime this week?
Next week.
Next week. Okay, well, whenever you leave, have a safe journey back. And thank you again for being an amazing guest tonight and for sharing so much with us. I'm sure that we all learned something from you. Anything that we left out that you felt we covered just about everything we should have covered, right? Okay. All right, it is 10:06 in our studios, and that is how we wrap up the program for tonight, the In the Spotlight radio show. Don't forget, I won't be here in person next week. I may have to do a repeat because I may have to go out of state for a few days, and that includes next week, Monday. So I'm telling you all in advance, so don't be mad at me when I'm not here next week, Monday, but I will definitely arrange for a proper repeat, maybe something, one of our cancer programs, considering it's Cancer Month. Cancer Awareness Month, I should say, not Cancer Month. We do not want a month for cancer. All right, good night, everybody. Thank you, Kadisha, for being here until our next program. I'm not saying what will happen the following week because, you know, Curling the Pack starts that week, but we'll see what happens. Thank you again. Good night, and God bless everybody.